Whether you're man, woman, whatever it is, find a group of, again, people you trust who talk about these financial topics.
People today are more financially savvy than ever. And that's largely because there's so much information out there, and that's powering smarter, bolder conversations. It's transformed and quickly evolved how planning gets done. Today, we're tapping into that momentum and talking all about staying empowered and avoiding blind spots. Hello, and welcome to Money on Your Mind from Edelman Financial Engines. I'm Michael Liersch, a behavioral scientist, financial planner, and your chief planning officer at Edelman Financial Engines. Thanks for joining us for a conversation about how people are feeling about money, what they're wrestling with, and how financial planning can help you straighten things out. Today, we're talking with Kaliko Veiseh, an EFE financial planner. Kaliko, welcome to Money on Your Mind, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
All right, we're going to get into it, but first, we always like our audience to know, Kaliko, a little bit about you. I mean, I know about you. We've hung out. You've been in this business for a couple decades now, and you love interacting with your clients, especially clients who are curious and interested and intentional about their money, which Kaliko is just awesome. And it sounds like you love debating with them and understanding, where their passions, their purpose lie, and how you can help them get to where they want to go with their money. But what I'd love you to do is maybe tell our audience, our listeners, a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from, how you found your way to financial planning, and ultimately what really drives you when it comes to working with your clients.
Yes, sure. Well, I have been in the industry since 2002. But since a child, I've always been money oriented. I loved balancing my checkbook down to the penny. And I thought I wanted to be an investment banker when I grew up. So that was the path I took in college.
Okay.
And then I learned what an investment banker does. And then I no longer wanted to be an investment banker. And I was very fortunate to encounter a man named Bill Schulteis, who eventually became my boss. I worked for him and started my career as a planner with him, and have now done it for a couple of decades. And I just love thinking back on where we started, what the industry is like now, and how much opportunity there is to help people.
So, Kaliko, why don't you tell us a little bit about that transformation that's happened since 2002 to today, especially in terms of, I know we wanted to focus this podcast on the information and the propagation of it and how available it is to all your clients and how that's changed your conversations. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. It used to be that you had to, if you were interested in finance, you had to subscribe to publications or websites, and that's how you would get your financial news. But now mainstream media are, there's headlines every day. There's something on CNN or Fox or Wall Street Journal, and there's so many topics around financial planning and broader areas of financial planning. It's no longer just hot stocks and stock picking and investment stock portfolios, but people are thinking about Roth conversion, Social Security, pension planning, long-term care planning. And so it's become really exciting to be in this industry these days.
So this whole environment's changed for a bunch of different reasons. Can you tell us what you think about not just your clients, but just people in general? Do you feel like then they've become more financially savvy because of this? Or do you think it's just a bunch of information overload and they don't know what to do with it?
Absolutely. I think they have become more financially savvy, and they're more curious, which makes my job fun and exciting, because they come to me and they ask me questions, or even, my friends will ask me, I heard about this. What do you think about this? And so just the fact that we're having those conversations is amazing, because we didn't 20 years ago. And so even though there's a lot of information out there, I love that we're having the conversation so we can kind of distill, okay, is it applicable, and kind of put a good framework around it.
So let's go through that a little bit, because when I think of someone coming to you with information, right? They've gathered it, they're curious, they want to be financially knowledgeable or savvy, however we want to put that. Uh, let's for our audience think about something like retirement accounts. What does it sound like in terms of them coming to you? So let's say someone who is, really thinking about saving and investing for their retirement. What do they come to you with in terms of the information they've gathered, and how might you help them through that?
It's always, where do I start? I have a
Okay.
401k or I have an IRA, but I've also heard of a Roth IRA. Where do I start? How do I save best? Or they might say, I'm making so much money, but I don't know, I saved my retirement plan, but I don't know if I'm saving enough or if I'm saving in the right accounts. I've heard of that my 401k plan has a Roth option. But what does that mean? And then we talk through, okay, tax brackets. It always comes back to taxes. We talk about, what's most appropriate. How can you best utilize your dollars today based on what other financial factors you have going on.
So I love this idea, Kaliko. Let's live here for a bit before we move to our next set of questions that we always ask on the podcast. I love this idea of where do I start? Because at the end of the day, our listeners know I'm a behavioral scientist, and I love getting over something called inertia, right? Where we're stuck almost in either the way we're doing things or not doing anything at all, Kaliko. So when I hear where do I start, it sounds like someone recognizing that, almost like there's some type of inertia, they're stuck and they want your help. So when they say where do I start, what do you tell them in terms of getting started, and how do you help them do that?
It's as easy as going online and setting up an account. Once you've established what kind of account is appropriate for you, whether it's a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, or if you're self-employed, a different type of account, it's just open the account and set up an automatic savings to it. If you can automate things, it'll never be a thought. You can check that box without even thinking about it every month.
I love that. And so when you think of people's reaction to that, what do they say? Are they responsive? Do they go do it right away? How does that unfold?
They say, that's it? Okay, that's easy. But the key there is not only to get the money in the account, but it's to make sure that it's invested, because
Okay.
that's the one of the key drivers of building wealth over the long term is time. So yesterday was the best day to start investing,
So
but the
it's
receptive, I mean,
not
make
too
it
late.
easy. Right? It's never too late.
When you think of this, yesterday was the best time to get invested. Do you think that's a lot of times what's holding the savvy investor back? They almost regret they didn't do it. So by doing it, they've almost acknowledged they made a mistake. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to kind of swallow that pill, but also that, we mentioned it before, there's information overload. So if they haven't talked to a professional or someone who's trusted in their life, who can kind of get them on that first step to saving, then they just don't know what to do. And they're, like you said, they're stuck.
I think another part of this, to your point, is people are afraid of making a mistake. There's so much information, so many options. They just don't want to do the do the wrong thing. They want to do the right thing. So that makes sense. But within that framework, is there a specific mistake you actually do see people make that you can help all our listeners avoid?
I think the very interesting mistake that I see is that we work with a lot of very successful people, and they'll just start doing everything because they've read that they should, but none of it is coordinated. They're not doing it with real intention. They're saving to all of the plans, workplace plans at work, and they've set up, their estate planning and they have insurance, but they don't know how much, if it's appropriate, but bringing it all together. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see when I work with a new client or when I talk to a friend who's asking for advice.
So what's the value of coordinating all of that and bringing it together? Why is that a mistake? Does it just become too much work by having it all separate? Like what makes it a mistake? I'm curious.
When you really think about it, what you do with your estate planning affects what you do with your investments. What you do with your investments affects your tax planning. And it's just, you name the area of wealth management and it's all interconnected. So you really need a cohesive plan to make sure that everything is working in the same direction. So that's why many times we will have relationships with our clients, other CPAs, estate attorneys, insurance agents, so that we're all of our professionals and our client are working together towards the same goals. So we're not doing things in silos, and everything is really efficient and cohesive.
So it's interesting you're putting it this way. So I'm gonna give one example for our listeners here to make it really concrete. And now that you've put it this way, Kaliko, I love this idea of coordination and making sure all of your professionals, your family, the key decision makers are all on the same page. Because you're right, you can skip really important steps. And I'm thinking of assigning account beneficiaries would be a great example in what you're talking about. Like really simple one, but one that is often missed.
Exactly. You may draft up the perfect estate plan, but if it's not coordinated with your financial accounts, it could be all for naught, because what the beneficiaries that you have listed on your accounts will always trump what you have in your will. So it's very important that we look at what is in your plan and what your intentions are, and make sure that your financial accounts reflect the intent.
And I love this idea too with the kind of coordination around taxes and income, whether you're an older listener and you're getting Social Security, you're making distributions to your point from a Roth or a traditional IRA or a 401k, whatever that may be, including your taxable accounts, making sure it's all coordinated so you really take advantage of all the tax benefits you could get, and you don't inadvertently, get yourself into a tax bracket that you didn't need to get into because you didn't coordinate all those things. Have you seen a lot of that too, Kaliko?
Yes, absolutely. When folks start to approach, retirement age, we start to have conversations around, well, where's the best place to, how am I going to fund my retirement living? If I haven't started Social Security yet, or I haven't started required minimum distributions from my IRA, should I take Social Security early? Well, those are conversations that we are having. But there could be missed opportunities to do perhaps a Roth conversion, which is converting traditional IRA dollars to Roth in those years after you've stepped away from earned income and before you have to start Social Security at age 70, at the max age. So there's a lot of opportunities with their related tax consequences for income that we can consider and execute by having these conversations about what's the best next step for me, for my financial situation.
I love this because it's just highlighting, to your point, the information overload, the curiosity, but then I didn't even anticipate we'd go here, Kaliko. The coordination and having a human being, a professional, a trusted decision-making partner, or even trusted family member to help navigate all those complexities beyond like a My AI function or a ChatGPT type of function is so critical, because you're right, the interplay of it all is very personal and unique. It's based on your preferences, your goals, the risks you want to take, your income, your financial situation. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us. So within that framework, let's move to our last question. What is the one action, and you already alluded to this, so you can repeat it, by the way, Kaliko, but what's the one action you'd like every listener to take today?
I would say talk to your planner. If you don't have a planner, talk to a friend who might be a planner, but just someone that you trust, who you can bounce financial ideas off of, to just start having the conversation. I think that's the most important key. And, finance is it's a vulnerable issue. You really have to place your trust in someone. So find that person who you can bounce ideas off of, but take this step, even if it's little. Open that Roth IRA, open that regular IRA, start contributing to your 401k, or up it by 1%. But start, have that conversation.
I love this. Have the dialogue, have the conversation, and then get started, and then keep the conversation going. And I know we talked about this. It was just International Women's Day, and you and I were going back and forth about the value of, affinity groups, men's groups, women's groups, groups that include both genders, across generations. Do you have any advice on, that kind of environment, where you suggest to either your clients or other people? Are there any kind of, groups that you would encourage them to think about, like an investment group? What's on your mind there, Kaliko? I'm curious.
Absolutely. Going back to the start of our conversation, again, the change in the industry, we have seen women in particular start to take more of an active role in their planning. It used to be that, oh, my husband handles that and I handle, other things. But now it's women are wanting to be a part of the conversation. So whether you're man, woman, whatever it is, find a group of, again, people you trust who talk about these financial topics, to where you can be vulnerable, you can share, you can ask dumb questions. No question is dumb, by the way. And again, start the conversation, but do it in a safe place. If that encourages you to keep going, to keep showing up, then do it.
And what's great about that, and I loved our conversation about this, it creates that almost like accountability partner too in that group, or to your point, that trusted human being, professional or not, to keep, not just get started, right, but keep going on that investment plan and on that coordination journey that you're talking about. So Kaliko, thank you so much for being with us today. I knew this would be an awesome conversation. You're a great human being, a fantastic planner, and I'm so proud to work with you at Edelman Financial Engines. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Okay, that's everything we have for today. This has been Money on Your Mind. A big thanks to financial planner Kaliko Veiseh for joining me. And we'll be back next Wednesday with a new episode. Subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube so you don't miss it. And we'd appreciate it if you left us a rating too. I'm Michael Liersch from Edelman Financial Engines. Talk to you next time.